Good morning. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Thursday, May 29th. It's almost 11:30. We're running about half an hour behind because we had an evacuation. Our weekly Thursday fire alarm. We hope it's not a trend. So we have two bills to take up this morning, and the first one is H 321, an act relating to miscellaneous cannabis amendments. And we have Kirby here from Ledge Council and Chris Roop from Joint Fiscal. And so welcome, gentlemen. And if you would like to introduce yourselves and tell us about the bill. And we also understand there's an amendment. So we should probably talk about that too. I don't know if you did that upstairs as well. Yeah, okay.
So Kirby Keaton, Legislative Council, Chris Roop, Joint Fiscal.
Great.
Would you like us to share the language or talk through it?
Why don't you share the screen? That's fine. You know, our viewing audience might want to see it. We all have it in today's calendar. That's what we were looking at. And then we did see the amendment GovOps webpage.
So what I'm sharing is the Senate proposal of amendment, and
So if we're in our calendar, that's the same thing. Is it?
yes.
Yes. So I think we had this in our committee. Senate did a whole lot of stuff, I think. So if you want to sort of at a high level, we will not spend time committee discussing the policy decisions that were made, but we'll understand what they are.
So yes, so it's been quite a journey, but luckily for you in the summary, a lot of what the Senate did, other committees undid. So I'll just tell you what actually.
That never happens.
Yeah. So sections 1 through 3 of the Senate proposal amendment are the same as came out of the House. Okay. Section 4 relates, there is a 2B in the middle here, where Senate Economic Development added to the Land Access and Opportunity Board a member appointed by Migrant Justice. The idea was to possibly do something with excise tax revenue for this board. That never really happened in the Senate. So this 2B is just an oddball part of the bill at this point.
Okay.
As I said before, section 3 is from the House. 4 is the same as from the House, except that the Byron amendment, 4 amendment that was mentioned before, is proposing to remove 4 sections of this. And most of that relates to the new trim and harvest license that was included.
So that was put in, the trim and harvest license was put in on the Senate side?
The House.
The House side, but we're taking it all out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And my understanding is that's partially in response because Senate Appropriations had decided to remove in section 15 an attorney position for the Cannabis Control Board. And they had also made another change to revenue that the Senate Economic Development had done.
So trim and harvest as a license is basically gone after we see the Byron amendment.
That is correct. And so sections 5, 6, and 7 are the same as the House. And section 8, so I'll just jump to, is also part of the trim and harvest license that the Byron amendment would remove from the bill. Sections 9 and 10 are the same as the House. Which brings us to 11, and 12 also relates to the trim and harvest license and would be removed by the Byron amendment. Except I would just quickly note for you so you're aware, section 12 of the bill also had a couple of other changes that were not trim and harvest related. So the creation of the 2-year option for employee ID cards, the 2-year option for product registrations, if you remember that, and the elimination of the intent to apply fee, which was going to be eliminated because it was something that existed when the whole system was being set up in the first place and was deemed no longer needed. Those things would all those changes would also go with the bylaw amendment.
Okay, so all of that section 12, and
All of
what
it.
about 12A? Does that stay? The report?
12A is new. That came from Senate Finance.
Yeah,
It would stay.
okay,
In the Senate, they discussed possibly changing all of the licensing fee schedule.
Yeah.
At the end of it, they decided not to make any changes, instead to ask the CCB to come back next year with recommendations for possible changes to the fee schedule.
okay,
They also asked at the same time in sub B here for some recommendations relating to having some excise tax revenue allocated towards the Cannabis Business Development Fund and the Land Access and Opportunity Board.
so that's just a report with recommendations. And I know, because I've talked to the Chair of Ways and Means, we know that not just the fee schedule, but how we've been funding the Cannabis Control Board, et cetera, is going to need to be changed because it's not sustainable the way it has been. So I think that some of this may be part of a bill that comes up next year.
Mhm.
So it made sense not to sort of do part of it this year with fees and part of it next year. It seems to make sense to do the whole thing all at once.
Yeah, so that's the plan with this language.
Okay,
Sections 13, 13 is the same as the House. 14 is the same as the House. There's a 13A also, if you remember, I was in here to talk to you about tobacco products at one point.
oh, yeah,
Like long ago. It's still there.
last decade.
Senate approach did remove section 15, which was the attorney position I mentioned for the
Yeah.
control board. There's a 15A that's new for you. It comes from Senate Economic Development and it relates to the cannabis showcase event permit. So it'll be a pilot program to allow up to 5 of these over the next couple years or year and a half. That some folks are calling like a farmer's market. And then there's a 15B that has the control board.
Yeah, so does that come out with the Byron amendment?
It does not, it stays. It's
15A is not being eliminated. So they can participate in up to 5 events between July 1st of 2025 and December 31st of 2026.
This means the board would be able to allow no more than 5 events, not any individual manufacturers or what retailers could be a part of any of those, but it's
Oh, I
as a
see.
whole. Only 5 events, is that, am I reading that correctly?
it's up to 5, it could be
But
0.
not for, like, Tom doesn't do 5 and I do 5 different ones.
They're supposed to be spread out geographically with different licensees.
So it's an event that people can attend as licensees, not the licensees creating the events.
So there's a beer fest, it's like,
Right.
except there's 5 of those there's
festival.
5 that can be held, sponsored or approved by the board, no matter how many vendors are within each of those events. But there's
that right?
only 5 that's been okayed in this legislation.
Yes, that's my understanding. And again, up to 5. And I think it's the control board have discretion about what it can handle.
Okay. Wayne,
These will be open to the public.
like a beer festival
A
is.
beer festival. Somebody's gonna. If you know, the underage.
Oh, you still have to do the underage pop festival.
Yeah, that's what it is.
There's a security plan and a lot of regulatory pieces here for the control board to track and to regulate that.
And do they have to establish that as well beforehand? Is it already established? Those kinds of things.
In the app, there's an application process here that says to be eligible for the showcase, an applicant retail cannabis establishment, that would be the different vendors, would have to demonstrate to the board to their satisfaction many things, including permission from local legislative body, partnerships with cultivators, manufacturers.
So if we look at number 5 and 6 within this, they have to have a security plan.
Yes.
5.
Okay, And then 6 has a product sales plan and how things will be transferred, secured, displayed, sold in conformity with state law and board rules. So all the rules apply. And I don't know if any of you have ever tried to get into a retail cannabis store, but I do not use pot at all, but I was invited to a grand opening in my community, and so I went, and the security was quite something to get in. So I expected it's the same kind of security.
I mean, some other notes here. I mean, these will be screened again. They have to be the types of retailers that the CCB has not had a problem with, you know, like in good standing and have been in compliance. They may occur outside. They can partner with a minimum of 3 small cultivators, because I think that's part of the goal here is to get the cultivators some exposure.
People can buy stuff here. They aren't
But not consume.
not consuming it there.
That's the showcase. And so in section 15B here is a report back from the Cannabis Control Board about how that's gone.
So this was put in on the Senate side?
It's in economic development specifically, yes.
Okay, this wasn't in the House.
I don't
No,
know.
Senate Economic Development put it in. And it went through Senate GovOps?
No. It went from, unless it was in GovOps before I joined the team here. No, it was economic development, then finance, then appropriations.
They do it a little differently for cannabis.
In the Senate than we do.
Used to be
It
traditional.
was in Senate economic development for a while. They had a lot of ideas, most of which did not make it through.
Okay, and then there's a report.
So, yeah, so again, just to summarize, and I'll hand it over to Chris, the Byron amendment would remove sections 4, 8, 11, and 12. And as far as what the Senate has done, they added 2B, 15A, and 15B, and 12A, and removed section 15, which related to the attorney position.
Do you know what the vote was on the Byron amendment in the other 2 committees?
I've only been to Ways and Means so far, but it was unanimous.
How about,
Of who was there, I don't know, a few people.
about,
Hasn't been to GovOps, or I haven't been to GovOps on this.
it just,
Let me see where GovOps is going today.
I think GovOps would like us to pay them a visit as soon as possible, but we were booked here first.
Oh, that's true. We do have a member of the Ways and Means Committee here. Teddy, do you know anything about what's happening? Is GovOps looking at this today? No. Actually, they are at 11:30. That's where you're going next. Well, I guess not at
Yeah,
11:30.
legislative time.
Post evacuation time. So you all had it in your committee, Teddy, and did you vote on the Byron amendment as well, or just?
We voted on it with the understanding that the Byron amendment was coming. We did not see the text of the Byron amendment, given what was told to us.
Okay, we've looked at the Byron amendment from their committee page, but that's.
And it was 704.
Right, you have people out and about.
I'm cruising.
Yeah,
Can I just say something?
yes, you may say something.
It's very, I know we're just doing a straw vote. But it's difficult understanding doing a straw vote if we don't even know if the Byron, because it's not a committee amendment, it's you have to be the chair. Whether that in fact is going to be adopted by Parliament. Aside from that, I have a problem with pop festival language they put in. That's me. But maybe I'm not understanding it correctly.
They just, go ahead.
And maybe if we can we improve things?
Yes, we can.
So my reading of this is that it's not a festival, like a beer festival, because no one is allowed to consume. So it's more like a show where people are allowed to be introduced to product, they can buy product if they're of age. the people who are selling it have to be licensed and adhere to what seem to be fairly, what we can expect to be fairly intense regulation, especially in pilot form. Is that, I mean.
Well, so why don't we have,
Well, I'm hearing festival as like, as a beer fest where you get 6 beers for your, you know, and that's
I
different.
appreciate the clarification, because I need to understand, for multiple reasons, but I need to understand what it is that language says.
so let's ask, Trevor, introduce yourself, and why don't you tell us what we don't know?
Is it okay to just stay here?
Yeah.
Okay, for the record, James Pepper, CCB. So the rationale really is, you know, anyone who has a cultivator in their district, a constituent, or has listened to the lieutenant governor, will hear the same thing. The cultivator business model isn't sustainable unless they can cut out all the intermediary licensees, the wholesalers, the manufacturers, the retailers, and go direct to the public. There's some very logistical challenges to that from the regulatory point of view. You know, our whole regulations, the whole statutes are set up to have the retailer be the intermediary between the public and cannabis. And, you know, we just from, there's 420 cultivators, licensed cultivators. So, you know, if all of a sudden we had 420 new retail locations, that'd be very challenging for the staff to handle. So this proposal tries to meet the cultivators halfway. You know, there's at least theoretical risk to moving retail sales outside of the kind of brick and mortar 4 walls of a retail establishment, because, you know, all the security cameras, the point of sale system, the tracking, everything that you set up in regulation kind of contemplates a retail environment, a retail store environment. So this tries to recreate that environment outside of a retail store while still trying to showcase exclusively the small cultivators, tier 1 and tier 2 cultivators. So you can think about it as a farmer's market. It's a controlled point of access, secured, screened from public view. You know, no one reasonably under the age of 21 should be able to see these things. You have to first, a retailer in good standing has to be the kind of person in charge. They have to first apply to the local authority, whether that's the Cannabis Commission or the local select board or whoever else is kind of in charge of making these decisions. We call it the local government, local municipal government body. They can, just like in the alcohol context, approve the permit, and they can condition that approval on whatever kind of public safety, you know, highway traffic safety issues that they want to condition the permit on. Then they would go with that permit in hand, they would come and apply to the board for a permit. And then we would review their security plan, how they're going to prevent inversion or diversion of products, how they're going to do their shading, how they're going to, you know, just make sure that everything's kind of secure and not, you know, we'll approve all their advertising that they're planning on doing for this to make sure it's compliant with our advertising laws. You know, just kind of essentially just recreate the retail store, they'll bring their point of sale system to the event, and all the sales. So the cultivators that they're partnering with will be allowed to kind of set up stalls within this area and talk directly to customers. They can share in the profits. There's a profit sharing agreement that they need to submit to the board of their cultivators. And the idea is to showcase the tier 1 and tier 2 cultivators at these events. And let them kind of interact with the public, try and build their own brand, you know, through these kind of conversations that they have at farmers markets. And then really this is about proof of concept. Can you move a sale of cannabis outside of this kind of brick and mortar 4 walls of a retailer? And I think that that's a question that needs to be answered before you can even contemplate allowing cultivators to kind of sell directly from their farms.
That started to get at the question I was gonna ask. So this is an experiment then to, because I was gonna ask, what's the point of having the cultivators if we have this kind of tied house or 3-tiered system, you know, it kind of copies alcohol a little bit, right? We've been very careful about who we license and how. But what I'm hearing is that the cultivators want to be able to sell direct, like raw milk, or is it like a situation where I can drive to a cultivator's farm and say, you know, I want to buy X.
The latter, yes, that's what we've heard consistently for the past, 5 years, same request year after year after years. I'm growing this stuff, I have to give half my profits to manufacturing, half my profit, half of what's left to the retailer. If I sold it from my farm, I would keep 100% of the profits. And that's the only way these very small, tiny players can compete against both bigger players and, just be economically sustainable. But again, there's some real challenges to the way that the law is set up and the way our regulations are set up to achieve that.
And so this again will be an experiment. I mean, I'm just concerned that this is, I don't have a problem with it if these pilots are incredibly highly regulated and, are going to be looked at, data collected, all the issues before we allow cultivators to sell direct to the public, because that kind of bounces off of what we were avoiding in the first place.
And I would just say that, I say that there's theoretical risks of moving kind of cannabis sales outside of the brick and mortar retail establishment. We do have one data set to look at. New York, just by fluke, licensed all their cultivators connected to their adult use system. And then their retail establishment scheme for handing out licenses got held up in a court battle for 2 years. We had 2 years of cultivators cultivating cannabis with no legal avenue to sell it. So in an emergency rulemaking where the legislature authorized cannabis showcase events at cannabis farmers markets and allowed the cultivators to kind of sell in this exact state. And they were so successful that the industry just asked the legislature to make them permanent, and we're just happy to know this.
Okay, so we're sort of delving into the policy. We wanted to clarify so we understand what they what they do, but that's great.
The bottom line is, we're gonna allow in these test cases, cultivators to sell directly to the public.
They would need to, it's the through a retailer, yes. So you can have a conversation, you can kind of stock up your cart, and then you go to the retail point of sale system, swipe your card there.
So you have to be paired with a retailer to do this. You can't just go on your own.
Operator can't do that on their own, correct?
Can't do it.
Can't do it on their own.
There may be enough guardrails. I need time to think about it. So for right now, no, definite no. I may be convinced in the next few hours, but right now, no, not prepared to vote on it. So,
Okay, well, we are gonna have to pass this out this morning, and if
That's fine.
you find out more later, you can do something another time. But let's have Chris quick, because I know you guys have to go to GovOps after this.
All right, good morning, everyone. Chris Roop. Kirby will be leaving to go to GovOps, but I get to join you for the next bill too.
That's true.
This will keep you all on the edge of your seats. This bill really does not have a significant fiscal impact. It has been through many iterations in its long journey back to you all. But based on what is now in the bill, and particularly after the Byron amendment is considered, the bill is really not going to have a significant fiscal impact. Representative Harrison, I feel your pain about the awkward order of floor amendments and things bouncing around, because you'll see that this version of the note reflects Senate Appropriations recommendation. The as passed by the Senate was not posted yet, but the Senate floor did not make any changes that would materially impact Senate Appropriations recommendations. We also don't do fiscal notes based on floor amendment. So you're not going to see another one until the House passes something, definitively. But at the end of the day, the fiscal impacts are minimal. Adding a member to the LAOB will represent a nominal additional cost for per diems and expenses. The new trim and harvest license and the 2-year employee licenses and product licenses, which the Byron amendment strikes, would not have had a significant impact to the Cannabis Regulation Fund, because there weren't very many trim and harvest establishments that would be expected to seek licensure. And by offering those 2-year licenses, it would still be the same annual fee prorated. So there would have been, a minor timing impact, but not a big fiscal impact. Again, the Byron amendment makes this kind of moot, assuming that passes. The showcase event permits would have a minimal impact as well. The revenues would be split between the regulation fund and the host municipalities. But since we're looking at up to 5 events, the limited scope of this is going to inherently mean there's going to be a pretty limited fiscal impact. The one thing I did want to draw your attention to is this report in 12A on CCB's fees and appropriations. So this section would require CCB to submit a report to legislative committees by November 15th on the fees that are in effect, projections on fee revenue, any trends that might impact fee revenues in the future. Again, these revenues all go into the regulation fund. A recommendation on whether any fees need to be adjusted. And as part of this report, recommend whether a portion of the excise tax should be allocated to the Cannabis Business Development Fund or to the LAOB. Again, this is a report that would come back to you all. I would just, as an employee of JFO, just remind you all that any decisions you all would make about dedicating revenues inherently takes revenue out of the equation that would be available for appropriation through the general fund.
Right, which is, we try to have as little as possible go into dedicated funds, and then we can appropriate as appropriate. So I think this would originally have come to us, thank you both, because there was a position that since we're taken out, and then there's one per diem, which is de minimis. So that's our part of stuff. So do we vote on the Byron amendment I think we should just do a straw poll on the Byron amendment? It's
You straw poll all you're doing, right?
we're doing straw poll for everything. Teddy, did you guys vote on the Byron amendment separately or not at all? You didn't even vote on it. Let's just cover our bases so we don't have to come back to discuss this again. And just do a straw poll on the Byron amendment first.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, go ahead, Dean.
Just help clarify. I mean, I know we've done this a lot, but when I vote, I'm not supposed to vote whether I like or dislike the product. I'm supposed to vote on the fiscal impact of the state.
Yeah,
Is that the guidance?
it should be.
Well,
It doesn't always happen that way.
we don't all look at that the same way because
Right.
wherever we vote, we're voting to advance a bill. If we don't agree with the underlying bill, I, for one, won't vote for it typically.
Regardless of the fiscal impact.
Because everything, fiscal impacts are a matter of priorities. If you have $10 and you'd rather spend the $10 somewhere else, I'm not gonna vote for something else that spends $10. But whatever,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to get a
Right,
clarity for myself.
In general, what you said, I also appreciate that this is what also happens. So that's where we are. It's still gonna probably make it to the floor. I mean, we need to get it to the floor. So let's just do a quick, straw poll on the Byron amendment, which takes out those 4 things, just in case we're asked, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So is there a motion to favorably approve the Byron amendment?
Let me go over what the Byron amendment does. I know there isn't any record.
We took out everything with trim and harvest.
Trim and
The
harvest.
new license,
Did it take out fees?
they take out what?
Fees.
Yeah,
There was going to be a fee for the trim and harvest license.
Yeah, and those fees were gone. And then they added 12A and 12B.
no, they added 12C.
They were 12A. So you took out the 12, the 4, 8, 11, 12.
4, 8, and 11, and 12 are all the sections that the Byron amendment is proposing
They're all
to
trim and, they're all
remove.
trim and.
And that is the full Byron amendment right there.
That's it.
It's proposing to remove those 4 sections.
That's all it does. Which is all that relates to trim and harvest.
The second question I have is the showcase, which I can't remember what.
15A and B.
That was put in by the Senate.
Yes.
So is that part of the Byron amendment? Or is that in the thing that he's?
No, he's not deleting that. It's not,
It's in there.
it stays in.
Okay.
So that's why I'm trying to separate. Let's vote for the Byron amendment first, which took out a bunch of stuff, trim and harvest, and then we can talk about the bill. Okay? So let's call the roll on the Byron amendment.
Representative Blumenle,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Harrison,
Yes.
Representative Kancensky,
Yes.
Representative LaRoche, Yes. Representative Rowicki,
Yes.
Representative Nigro.
Yes.
4 yes, Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative McAvoy
Yes.
and Representative Shaw.
Yes.
That's 11.
So that's the first thing. And then
We're voting
we
on,
vote on the bill as amended. If we haven't heard this, do we have to vote on the bill?
we could do different
I
scenarios.
know.
What are we doing here? I mean, Ways and Means just took one vote.
And they assumed the Byron
And the
amendment.
proposal of amendment and the.
Okay, so let's now take a vote on the bill as amended by the Byron amendment.
So this is different from what we just voted on.
We just voted on the Byron amendment. Now we're gonna go back to the bill, 321 as amended by Byron.
And the Senate.
That's the special.
It includes, right, it's the,
All those other
it
days.
includes all the other stuff, but takes out all the trim and harvest. That's the effect of the bill.
That's the 15A.
It still has 15A and B, right? Okay. So straw poll, can we have a motion to, thank you, Tiff. So this is the bill as amended by Byron. Okay, whenever you're
This
ready.
is-
Wait, the question, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick here. So this is the piece that establishes what you described. Right? These events having.
It includes the cannabis showcase permit pilot in 15A. But the Byron amendment did not take that out.
That's correct.
It's this bill, but without 4, 8, 11, and 12. None of which has to do with the permit thing. Okay? Are we clear on that? I know you are. I'm just making sure I see people's brains going. I want to get out of the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody set? All right, let's take the vote, please.
So it's still federally illegal, right?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Representative Blumenle,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
No.
Representative Harrison,
No.
Representative Kancensky. Sorry.
No, sorry.
Representative LaRoche. Representative Rowicki,
No.
Representative Nigro,
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens.
Yes.
Representative Yakavoni,
Yes.
Representative Shaw.
Yes,
6-5.
that's our closest vote.
Hey.
I'm just trying to get it. I'm right to the floor. All I want to do is get it to the floor.
the floor.
Well, yeah, but I want to get our vote. Okay, so Mike Nigro, thank you all for coming. Are you staying for the next one? Probably you are. Thank you. The steers.
Yep.
I'll let, you know. And so, yeah, unless you want to, you are free to go on to
I'm gonna run off to.
run off to the next. And do we have? We do. Corner, usually they're over, you're over there. Would you like to come please? We are switching to 397. Emergency management and flood response, and that should be on our committee page.
Also on the calendar.
And it's in the calendar. And there's a fiscal note. Chris is just hanging in with us to the end. It's 23. Wait, why is it logged in? Why did this come through? We did something with S23 today? Okay, it's showing up on our committee page, so. Oh, maybe I'm on the wrong committee page.
Committee.
I'm on GovOps. I'm on the wrong committee page. It's definitely the end of session, okay. I think you already. No, just.
Legally.
Don't mind us. Okay, so Tucker, are we looking at the Senate proposal of amendment?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good, and this one is Jim's.
Yep.
Okay. Introduce yourself and have at it, Tucker. We appreciate you being here.
Well, good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Counsel. For the record, you should have in front of you the Senate's proposal of amendment for H 397. I can move through 90% of what I would have done very quickly by saying that the Senate pared down H397 fairly significantly. And I believe that the only sections that I have to flag for you are the new sections 21 and 22. Those sections relate to broadly TIFs. Section 21 contains a general fund transfer to the ed fund to cover the cost of a reimbursement to 2 municipalities for overpayments to the ed fund related to their TIF districts. So the way that this works functionally, section 21 transfers $621,479 from the general fund to the ed fund to make these payments. And then later on, in subsection B, $437,028 is paid to the city of Barry by the Department of Taxes. There's an appropriation to tax for this purpose. And then $184,451 is paid to the town of Milton. And in both instances, this is repaying those municipalities for overpayments that resulted from insufficient retention of funds from their TIF district funds. So they overpaid and are being reimbursed.
It has to go through the ed fund. It's a complicated thing. Jim?
So this is maybe more a question for Chris, but we passed our budget. Understanding maybe a mistake was made in terms of the payments. We're trying to correct that, but what does that do to our general fund by doing this?
Chris Rupp, Joint Fiscal. The excellent question, Representative Harrison. The backstory to this is the reason why the general fund's even involved is this $621,000 and change expense was not factored into the yield calculation because it came after the yield bill was done. So had this stayed out of the ed fund, there was a risk of putting the ed fund into the red next year. So instead, this construct that your colleagues in the other body put together would be net neutral to the ed fund and basically just use it as the pass-through since we're dealing with education property taxes. Where the $621,000 comes from in the general fund, there was a little tiny bit of general fund that was not appropriated in the budget. And it was related to the delay of the repeal of the telephone property tax for a year. So this will not have any impact to the budget you all passed. This comes from that very, very small balance that would stay in the general fund just in FY26 because of that 1 year kick out of the repeal of the telephone personal property tax.
Okay, so we are spending more general fund than we had previously appropriated, but I'm aware we had a little bit on the bottom.
Yeah, and it's to deal with this issue that was flagged by the audits for the 2 respective TIF districts. So I know the tax department was involved in some of these calculations, and this all goes, I don't know all of the backstory of it, but to make a long story short, there were some administrative errors and some software errors that had to do with capturing the right properties within these 2 TIF zones. So this just corrects those and deals with those audit findings. So it's a one-time expense. It's really not, you're not standing up a new program or anything like that. It's to deal with an accounting correction.
Have a lot of problems with TIFs and accounting over the years.
But why
15 years
is
I've
it
been
Berry
doing
City
TIFs.
and Berry Town?
It's the city of Barry and the town of Milton. They're 2 different.
2 different places.
Milton's for.
Read the whole bill. Wayne?
So how does the appropriation work? Is this appropriating money when we do this?
So this transfers the money from the general fund to the ed fund, because when you move assets from one fund to another fund, that's a transfer. Then there's.
Not an appropriation, it's a transfer.
Then once the money is transferred into the ed fund, there is an appropriation to the tax department to then cut the checks to the 2 jurisdictions.
So I'm just asking because we're supposed to be the ones that appropriate, right?
Yep. And Senate Appropriations added this.
So Senate Appropriations did it. So this really is needed to come to us. Yeah. TIFs are consistently an accounting problem. And these are two places that have town treasurers and town managers and sophisticated people doing it, and they still get it wrong. TIFs are not easy to do. So, and Teddy, you are here for this as well. Is there anything you want to add to this? We kind of have it? Okay.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, it was 803.
Okay. Oh, you had more people in for that vote.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, I mean, I think answering Representative Harrison's question pretty much got at the meat of what's in the fiscal note based on, compared to what you all saw previously. The programs that were in this bill, the last time you saw it, the municipal grand list stabilization program and the abatement of education property taxes related to floods, that came out of the bill because they were in the budget that you all passed. So in order to avoid the redundancy, since the budget passed, the Senate took that out.
Yeah.
The shift of the local option tax revenue from 70-30 to 75-25 stayed in.
Yeah.
The only difference is that at the request of the tax department, the effective date was delayed to October 1st. And the last piece was the city of Barry's back to the theme of TIFs. The city of Barry requested a 2-year extension on their indebtedness incursion period for the TIF. And
They could take 2 years more to incur debt.
Correct.
Projects.
Correct. And my understanding, and Representative Wozniak knows more about this than I do, because his ears to the ground locally, is that some of the flooding, delayed some of the, there were some delays in their development
I can imagine.
plans.
And there was a flood resilient housing development being built in, which is why it's tricky to this bill.
Okay. Okay, so are people sort of clear on what's happening? It kind of has to happen. And the way we have to do it is to get it through the ed fund, so it's accounted for appropriately.
I remember hearing about this sometime this year. I don't
Yeah.
remember where it came in, but I remember the math and taking
Yeah.
out 600 and.
Yeah, so it should be fairly familiar, right? Okay. Are we clear on what we're doing here? And Jim?
Yeah, and we have to do what we have to do.
Yeah.
And you gotta, do the true. I am fine with continuing to be the reporter, but
I think it
the
should-
implication really is TIF. So if my friend from.
Mike, we're gonna, Mike Creamy Man is gonna take it.
Questions,
Fair enough.
go at it.
You're on a roll here.
Okay.
So we'll just give that to you. I was thinking the same thing. You own Okay, everybody clear on what we're doing here? So a straw poll again, is there a motion to support the bill as presented? Wayne? Thank you. Not seeing any other questions when the clerk is ready?
Representative Blumley,
Yes.
Representative Dickinson,
Yes.
Representative Harrison,
Yes.
Representative Consenska,
Yes.
Representative Roche. Yes. Representative Rowicki.
Yes.
Representative Nygaard.
Yes.
Representative Squirrel, yes. Representative Stevens. Yes. Representative Yakavoni
Yes.
and Representative Shaw.
Yes.
11-0-0.
Okay, we're back to a unanimous vote, and that might be our last vote of the session. It's very
Really?
nice to end on a unanimous vote. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you coming in and your flexibility and committee. I think that may be it, but I can't promise for bills.
This is one.
This is the one I wasn't, you're gonna have to do in the.
We're back on the House floor.
We're back in the House floor 1.